Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Our guest today is Carter Hughes. Carter is a national subject matter expert in workforce development and veterans benefits. He is also the founder of the Carter Hughes Knowledge Institute, which he created as a way to help people help themselves by refining their talents and thereby refining themselves. I love that. Carter, thank you so much for coming on Resume the Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Courtney. Thank you. Happy to be here.
So one thing that really struck me when we were talking before was just that idea of refining people's talents to refine themselves. So I want to get all into that. I want to talk all about that. But I like to start every guest off with this question, which is, if you were at a dinner party and somebody came up to you, had no idea who you were, just kind of talking, and they asked you, what do you do? What would your answer be?
That's a good one. What I do is I try to create things that help people be more confident and more productive. That's probably the simplest way to put it. Like all the tools, the books, the courses, it's all to help people be more confident and more productive, because I feel like that's the beginning for a lot of incredible things for people, having that confidence and being willing to kind of show it and develop it. So that's what we try to do. Help people be more confident and more productive. In one sentence, that would be it. Yes.
I like it. And what is the response to that usually when you start talking about what you do?
They want to know what it means, right? What does that mean? What are some of the tools that you have? And then we share that with people. Most of the time, people are intrigued by it, right? Because I think we often overlook, we talk about being more confident, things like that. But a lot of time, I know for me, it took me till the 32nd year of my life until I knew the definition of confidence. Like, I had talked about
what is the definition?
like the actual definition. All right. It took me a few decades to get around to that. So, and then once I found it, it was like a eureka moment for me. Like it made oh my goodness, I've been misjudging this thing. I had just misunderstood what confidence was. So we try to clarify that for a lot of people. And it's simply just about identifying your qualities and abilities first and then refining them. That's a big part of it right there. So yeah, it was very helpful to me once I kind of got that clarity. And then it's like, I got to share this. And people enjoy it. People enjoy it because it's just similar to me. It's an eye opener, right? Regardless how old you are, we all kind of have established a way that we're living life. So when you learn new things, it's an eye opener. So I really enjoy that part of it.
I have so many things that I want to touch on in that. But first, so we're going to get to all of that. There's like so much there to go over. But I want to go back to the beginning, to little tiny Carter Hughes as a kid. Mm-hmm. What did you want to be when you were a little guy?
A doctor is what I wanted to be. And when I was a little guy, I wanted to be a doctor. I was the youngest one, right? We had there's maybe 6 or 7 cousins, right? At grandma's house, that whole thing. And I was the youngest one. So I got to watch all of them. So of course I'm going to be like the smartest one because I get to see them do stuff and make.
Because you got to be a sponge.
Yeah. It was literally the best seat in the house, right? So by the time I was like 5 or 6, they kind of dubbed me the smart one. They kind of gave me my identity, right? Of being the person, the problem solver, the finding the information. Like I was that person. And I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. And then I got older. Doctor is a long time for school. And I was more of a math person than a science person also. So that kind of scared me away from the doctor thing as well. But I think ultimately, I just kind of wanted to help people because I was a young person in a big family. And that's always kind of been my role, to help people, right? To help everybody else, using all the stuff that I get to kind of watch and see and then use that to help people. I'm not a doctor. I do help people like doctors.
So when you kind of veered off the doctor path, where did you end up?
I probably put the doctor thing to bed around 12, 13 when I got introduced to basketball, right? I'm still a young boy at this point, right? reading books is cool, but I'd rather be hanging out and doing sports and all that stuff. So once I got into that world, that was probably the end of the doctor, because then I fell in love with basketball. I fell in love with competition as well, like competing, the winning, the losing and learning. And all that still helps me out to this day also. But from there, that's probably where I put the doctor thing down at. And I really just kind of focused socially at that point, trying to be a cool guy. I did that for an amount of time. Not really
How'd that work out?
It didn't work out.
It didn't? Were you cool?
No, it never works out. But but that was a big chunk of my life. Like, and we talk about it now, spending major time on minor things, right? Like that's what I was doing for a while. The things that really didn't matter at all, I was like hyper focused on them. So I lost some time during that period, but I was always like a good person and things like that. I was never a malicious person. I think I just had a real small vision of myself at that time. And I was more so trying to fit into who I thought people wanted me to be or whatever. Just kind of lost, like your average young person, right? I just kind of lost. And I didn't have the courage to really stay on that path of being a doctor and being a learner. With all the noise around me, I didn't have that kind of courage to really say, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to stick with it. So yeah, I kind of got knocked off the path and was the sports guy, went to school, had some trouble in school, still being the cool guy, got kicked out of school. So yeah, they weren't accepting that there. And then from there, I went to the military, Marine Corps, when I was 18 years old. And that was the beginning of like straightening my life up, like trying to get it together, understanding that I needed structure. That was a big one. Understanding and accepting that, man, I need structure in my life. And the Marine Corps really helped me out with that, giving me that structure, bringing me back to kind of, we're on one team trying to solve a mission, right? Like the whole camaraderie of that I kind of didn't have with sports, because I wasn't good enough to go play in college, right? I was okay, but I was not good enough. So I wasn't able to do that. And then I went to the military, went to college on an academic scholarship, got kicked out. That was very embarrassing for my family and for myself. When you think that's the end of the world, right? You're 18 years old. Oh my God, you're supposed to be the smart guy.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it played out. So, I bounced back from that by going to the military, to the Marine Corps first. And then I went to the Air Force as well. Came out of the Air Force when I was about 25, 26. And then I had my son a year later. So once my son, and I still wasn't like serious at life about that point, like didn't have any kind of stable structure. Once my son came, that's when I got to kind of try to figure this out, right? Because I'm a 27-year-old person in America, right? I can speak English and I'm not doing well. And it was just like, what is going wrong? So I kind of started trying to figure that stuff out. In the meantime, I took my job more seriously, tried to learn wherever I was at. I was on a low level, but I tried to learn as best I can. How do I move up? What's required? What are the courses that are required? Started asking questions, kind of starting to plan out my life, but didn't really know what I was doing. So I worked with the city at first and then went to the state. And that's where I started doing disability claims, helping people in the veteran space. And that's where I got a lot of that knowledge from. That's when I started creating checklists to help people. And that whole checklist kind of idea, I keep that with me today. That's on the website, also different checklists to help people. But while I was with the state is where I bumped into the words of Zig Ziglar. And that's what kind of started to clarify the opportunity that I had. And it was one phrase that really stuck with me. He said, if you want to make a fortune, provide a fortune of services, right? And that really stuck with me. Like, man, maybe this is all just about me getting better. And that was like, once I focused on that, yeah, it's been pretty good since then. And I started doing these things, not really knowing what I was doing, but I was just trying to focus on learning as much as I can about the job. So I'm volunteering, trying to help somebody do this, help somebody do that, right? So that's making me more helpful to my coworkers. And then I also started public speaking as well, volunteering for giving the briefing or running the training. Or, oh yeah, let me do it. It was terrible, right? Nerves. Oh my God. There was one where I was giving the presentation and my director walked in after I started talking already. And I got really nervous. And so I kind of paused and I reached down to get like a drink of water. And in between that, like reaching down, I'm thinking, like, man, if I just fall down right now, people would have sympathy for me. They wouldn't be mad. Like, why don't you take me for right? Like, I would be a sympathetic figure if I just fell down. Like, yeah.
Martyr.
Yeah. Because it was just so nerve-wracking in those moments. Public speaking for me, it was a tough one. Getting used to it and then finally accepting that the nerves are not going away. Right? You just have to make these butterflies fly in formation. That's more the only thing that you can do about it. So those three things, like learning more about my job, being more helpful with my coworkers, and the public speaking piece of it, they helped me out tremendously in my job. So I started having more success. And then I wanted to figure out, why is this happening? What is it that I'm doing? And there's a couple other people that I was working with at the same time who were kind of doing these three things that I identified. They were doing the same things, and they went on to get more opportunities, more success as well. So that's when I kind of extracted these three things, started sharing it with people, and the feedback we got was really good. So that's where the book and the audio book and the courses, they all kind of come from these three simple principles that kind of help people, gives them a platform to kind of be creative and make the most out of your work life. Because the way we see it, like the bulk of your life is going to be spent at work. Like that sounds crazy, but that's the reality of it, right? If somebody were to watch a movie on your life, they would be watching you at work for most of the movie, right? Like, yeah, this is the bulk of the movie is going to be you at work. So we definitely try to use that to encourage people. Let's take this thing seriously, right? Let's make the most of it. Whatever industry you're in, they're generating billions, if not trillions of dollars. So there's opportunity there for you, and really just kind of simplifying for folks how to do that, right? These are three simple things that if you just kind of lock into these, it could pay dividends for you. And once again, it's been very helpful. We've got some good feedback on it, and still looking to evolve it and improve it as well. But very proud of that one so far, the American work.
Yeah. So I want to go back really quick, because I think you mentioned something that I think a lot of young people, and just any age really, but I think it does happen when you're younger with growing up in whatever, if it's your parents or grandparents or a coach or whoever it is, can sometimes either consciously or subconsciously place certain expectations on you. And you had mentioned that that was something that had kind of happened or that you struggled with. Can you talk a little bit about what were those expectations and where did they come from, and how did that affect your trajectory?
I think for all the expectations that I had, they were kind of like, I guess, societal expectations, and then my parents' expectations as well. But they weren't mine, right? Like that was the big issue with it, is that they weren't mine, right? My parents wanted me to kind of go more into that doctor field. That wasn't something that I wanted to do. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to go to college when I came out of school, because I hadn't really decided on an occupation or anything at that point. And so for me, and then from the TV as a young person, right? This, when the hip hop time and all this, I'm trying to play a role in that stuff too, right? Like all the different kind of character, the sports guy character, the way he should act, right? How they tell us on the movies and all that. So, and as a kid, I'm just taking cues from all these different things. None of them are well thought out, right? None of them are meant to be like the way that you live life. But yeah, I think it was just kind of being a young person. And
yeah, the reason I ask is just because I think it's something a lot of people have dealt with, and it kind of can follow you for a way longer than you think.
Yes.
And it's really like foundational to career paths a lot of the time. And so that's why I ask. It has come up before with just friends that I've spoken to about careers and clients and everybody. So it's always interesting to me to know if somebody has external expectations that kind of wear on them, or internal expectations of themselves, and how a person can mitigate the risk of that affecting like everything. So thank you. Yeah, I know it is hard to go back to that kind of mindset from when you're like 18. But if anyone's out there listening who's 18 and is like, everyone's expecting me to do different things, and like, you're not, that happens. Like, that's normal.
That's normal. Yeah, that is totally normal. And that was me. That was me. I have to always embrace that guy was me. I don't understand why he was doing what he was doing, but that was me. And that's sometimes a part of the process. I'm a bit of a slow learner, so it took me a while. But what we do try to tell people is that the internal expectations, those are the that are most important, right? The expectations you have for yourself. And it's important that you're gentle with yourself, right? We don't want to be mean to ourselves, right? All of the things that we offer, we don't want any of them to be a burden. It's more like a buddy for you, right? Like, even when you set goals, if you don't hit that goal, that's fine. We just want you to make some progress, to have some movement. You can adjust all these things, right? So it's definitely about having some grace with yourself and understanding that you're going to have to try things more than once also to get them. It's a part of it. Things don't come easy from what I've seen, right? It's difficult. I mean, even doing this podcast, there's so many different disciplines you have to learn about in order to effectively pull this off, right? So it's just kind of getting them to accept at a young age also that work is a big part of it. I tried to run from that, right? Like, maybe if I'm smart enough, I don't have to do enough.
You can't skip steps,
Can't
right?
skip steps.
I know. We all want to.
That's the same thing with my kids. I think that's just a natural thing. But it's important for us to keep getting that
It
journey,
is.
you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's something that's funny. I had another guest on that, and he touched on this a bit, but it's like every up and coming generation wants to skip steps. So I think that's kind of just a normal thing with like growing up, and you can't.
No.
You got to take the stairs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And something else you said, which struck me just in regards to the Marines and the Air Force, is structure and how it was so helpful for you. Can you talk a little bit about that realization? Because I also think that's something for, if there's any free spirits that are listening, or people who think like, I need like flexibility and whatnot. There are definitely people who need that. Yeah. But I would love to hear how you came to the realization that structure is something that you need and is helpful for you.
Over time, obviously, I come to that realization. First, it was seeing that it was so helpful to people, right? Even with the checklist, right? The checklist is a structure, right? It's a framework to give someone that they can operate within. So the same type of a concept for me when I was doing workforce development and we were trying to tell veterans about apprenticeship programs. The beauty of an apprenticeship program is that it's structured. It has benchmarks. After 6 months, this is what you'll be earning. This is what you should have learned after 12 months, right? Clear benchmarks, clear structure. And we were selling it as the military person is already used to structure. So coming out, this is a continuation of that, something they'd be more familiar with. And with the clear benchmarks, you can kind of identify, okay, what do I need to do to advance also, which is a big thing for your high performing people, wanting to have that clear path, what's expected of me so I can go ahead and get to it. But then as I got older, I learned about the law of entropy as well, right? Anything left to itself tends to move toward disorder, right? And I saw that in my life, like when I didn't have things that I was kind of bound to, I would just wander, right? And I used to always say that as a young person, like, man, if it was up to me, I would probably just wander around, right? I don't know why I would say that, but I think that was true about me, right? Like I hadn't accepted any kind of structure in my life and understanding that I need to operate within some structure in order for what I'm doing here to have some type of meaning. My children have helped me out with that a lot also, just being a parent.
Children will force you to they will.
Seeing it from that angle, like, man, we all need some framework to operate within so that we know we'll be safe, healthy, and happy, right? Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a limiting thing. But when I was younger, I definitely saw it that way. But the reality is now that I've gotten older is that you have to be bound to something. At the very least, you're bound to your family, right? The people who brought you here. So that's one of those other things. It's not a bad thing to have boundaries and things like that. I'm starting to read the Bible as well. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can about just life and what's the best way to do this thing and kind of do it in a way that we're safe, healthy, and happy forever, right? That's the goal.
Can you say that quote again? Anything left to the law of, can you repeat that? The law of?
Yeah, the law of entropy. Yeah. Anything left to itself tends to move toward disorder.
I've never heard that. That's
so Google it.
It's almost like the idle hands quote. I don't know how that
idle
goes.
mind is the devil playground or something like that. I've heard that one.
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Same idea, right? But that's so interesting. That is true. I mean, and I wonder why structure for young people is something that is kind of looked at as a negative or almost like an engagement as opposed to a foundation.
I think it's probably the contrast because as a young person, right, you're recognizing all these gifts and abilities that you have as a human, right? Like I can do all this stuff and you got somebody trying to tell me, stay in this box. It probably just doesn't make sense because of the timing of it all. Like your abilities are growing at a rapid rate as a young person, right? Like every day you're figuring out, man, I can do this and this. And someone's trying to limit me. Like, I'm not trying to hear that. It makes sense. That's just bad timing.
And just, exactly. And like the perspective of time, like when you're a little kid, it goes by so slow. Like my daughter's 3 and she's like, those years are so long for her. And like, she can't wait for her next birthday. She just had it, right? Like it's going to take a while for you. Like this is going to feel like a really long time. for my husband and I were like, oh man, that went by fast. So
Goes by like,
yeah. Okay. So I wanted to, when I was doing some research before this, something that really struck me about your mission statement and your core values for the Institute, which are learning, sharing, protecting, and caring.
correct.
The one that stuck out to me the most was protecting. So I'm curious to know why you included protecting in there. Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. From Jim Rohn, we got this whole life is like the seasons, right? And in the
Mm,
summertime is when you have to protect your crops, right? Like you have to protect the ideas that you start. You have to protect the good values that you're putting out there because they will be attacked. And from what I've seen in life, when you're doing good, people are going to come to try to attack you. So we don't want there to be any kind of disillusion about that, right? So you're going to have to protect all the good that you start, right? It's great to be noble, yes, but you may have to fight to defend your position as well, right? And we want to just be
mhm.
upfront with people about that because if you don't, they say it's like when you're planting, so when you set a goal, you're walking towards it. It's like planting seeds in a garden, right? And as soon as you plant the seeds, the weeds are coming to get those seeds. The birds are coming to steal those seeds, right? And those are like the distraction, discouragement, the deception, the doubt, all these things that can kind of work against you from accomplishing your goal, right? Which is why protection is a major one. We say love like a mother, yes, but protect like a father, right? Like you have to protect the good that you start. You have to protect the values for your family. You have to protect your mind, right? Because if you don't and you allow all these kind of negative messages, images to get in there, it affects you, right? Like the words that we've heard from the time we were born up until now have kind of turned us into who we are, right? Like words are powerful. So yeah, we definitely take a serious stance on making sure you protect the messages that come in, making sure you protect your good ideas, making sure you protect your values because they're going to be tested. And that's important. But that's why, yeah,
Yeah.
that's why protecting is up there. It's an important
Yeah.
piece of all this. Yes.
It really stood out to me. No, yeah, it really stood out to me. And I was like, oh, I need to ask him about that. I also wanted to ask you about identifying their people's value by identifying their talents. So can you explain how you kind of use someone's talents to extract what their values are?
It's more so kind of helping them to kind of inventory the tools at their disposal, right? Like, and
Got
this
it.
all
Okay.
comes from Howard Gardner, the multiple intelligence theory, right? That we all have 8 different intelligences, visual, spatial intelligence. Those are like the puzzle people, the architects, verbal, linguistic intelligence, the talkers, the readers, mathematical, logical intelligence, bodily, kinesthetic intelligence, musical, rhythmic intelligence, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and then naturalistic intelligence as well, right? These are 8 different intelligences that the human has pitched to different degrees, right? But when you take these assessments, they'll kind of let you know why you're into the things that you're into, right? So what we're trying to help people to do is inventory the things that you have at your disposal. If you have some of them that are low, there are activities you can do to work on those. If you have some that are high, there are activities you can do to work on those, right? And the ones that are high for you, you should be working in industries that kind of support those gifts that you have, right? Because all of the intelligences were used to kind of build the world that we had, right? Phones were not built by the words, right? They were built by the mathematical, logical people with that type of intelligence, the visual, spatial. Same for the building, same for plumbing, electricity, like all these very important things to our particular society were developed by people who didn't have verbal intelligence, right? So to speak, or that wasn't their largest one. And the
Mm,
misconception is that verbal linguistic intelligence is the only kind of intelligence. And that's just not true. So what we're
mm,
seeing is that we're losing a lot of people who are not feeling as valuable because they have that visual, spatial, or that mathematical, logical intelligence, right? So they're losing their way and maybe not working in the industry that they should be working in because of this perception that you have to be a writer or a talker or whatever to be considered smart, which is just not true. Like, all the things that I use throughout my day were not created by the word people. They were created by
yeah.
people with other types of intelligence, right? So it's just kind of trying to combat that misconception that there's only one type of valuable intelligence because it's just not true.
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of the time people will end up being upset in their career or even get depressed in their
Mm-hmm.
career because they're in a position or in an industry even where their natural skills aren't being utilized as they should be.
Boom.
And sometimes they don't even know what their main natural skill is or talent. And if you put exactly what you're saying, like if you put someone who like, if you put Mozart to go create the telephone, he's going to feel like an idiot or
Yeah, a
like
mediocre
not smart
telephone guy.
when
Yeah.
he's actually a genius, right? Musical genius, right? So there is a huge amount to be said for understanding where your skills are and where your
Yes.
strengths are and
Yes.
applying them as they should be. Because I think that happens a lot, even when we're kids growing up. You can feel less than when you're in the wrong environment for your natural abilities. So I love that because especially now as a parent, I am like so hyper aware of it because it can, again, like follow you through life. For me, I always viewed people who were like engineers and good at math and science as the brainiacs and like super, super smart.
Mhm.
And the kind of soft sciences as like less than, which is so not true. But that mentality can follow you for so long.
Yes.
And I love that. I love what you guys are doing because it's so important to instill that confidence in people just with the awareness of where they fit in.
Yeah. That's a big, but just the awareness of it, just letting them know, right? We're not trying to convince anyone of anything, but we're trying to expose these ideas to people, right? And let them know, hey, if you want to take this thing, you can, and get a little more information about yourself, right? And that can help you going forward, right? Because definitely there's a lot of those frog prints, right? Living a life that was never meant for them to live. We see that sometimes and we have some brilliant people. I know brilliant people, like brilliant artists who are not in the art industry, right? Who've never taken any formal training at it, right? It comes easy to me. So we see a lot of sometimes when something comes easy, you don't work hard at it. So we're trying to flip that around also. Like, man, if it comes easy to you, work really
capitalize
hard
on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could change your life. It could change your life. So yeah, we definitely, even with my kids, I have them taking the assessments early just to give them an idea that you can look into your future now. You can make.
How old are they?
She's 11. My son is 14.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I try to get them on that now, just to let them know that this is what your life will be about. You having the courage to plan out what you want and go for it. That's largely what it comes down to. I mean, the world is your oyster. But you're going to have to decide. And I think that's what I didn't want to do. So I really try to suggest to them, hey, go ahead and they're going to be wrong. It's fine, right? You're going to have some good ones and some bad ones, and it's fine. You're going to keep learning. But you want to be right every time when you're young. You're like, I don't want to try it unless it's perfect. You got to get out of that habit. So I'm trying to work with them.
Yeah. That actually brought me back when you were talking about public speaking, because I have mentioned this on other episodes because a lot of people talk about it and it's like one of the biggest fears people have. I think it's like death and public speaking. like it's a really big one. So especially kids, like if you're listening or if you're, whatever, starting out, public speaking is something that scares a lot of older people, middle-aged people,
people.
Like it's a big one. Yeah. So the earlier you can kind of get around that and just acknowledge like, okay, this is the sooner you deal with that big hurdle, I think is so important because it's in every, like public speaking also, and I would love to hear your take on this. I think there's a misconception that it's speaking in front of like a stadium of people. And it's really not. It's like doing a training or giving a presentation at work. And how did you, I am interested to know how you kind of came to terms with it after deciding not to pretend pass out at that. Was it that moment or did you have another like aha moment where you realized this is just going to be something I have to deal with and I'm just going to go for it?
That was it. Because at that point, I had like a couple, maybe 2-3 years before that, I was selling timeshares. So I had done like a sales type of job or whatever. So, but this was more like, serious presentations. But that's when I accepted that, man, this is not going to stop for me as far as the nerves of it all, right? And I got to the point where it's like, okay, the nerves are there because I care, right? That's kind of how I packaged it. The nerves are there because I care. It just means I
love
care.
That. That's good. That's true too.
It worked for me. Yeah, I try to tell my kids the same thing. But that worked for me. Like, man, you just got to keep doing it. And the nerves are there because you care, right? So I just kept doing it. There was one where I had to give like 4 back to back. It was challenging. It wasn't going to kill me. And I knew that. Like, I'm not going to like die from doing this. So it was just kind of because we get the fears, and the fears are ridiculous. But that's because we have good imaginations, right? So it's for me trying to take that fear out of my head and then logically address it. Like, okay, if I do this, what's really going to happen? I mean, what's the worst?
Yeah, like what's the worst thing?
Right? Like they're talking about me anyway. It's fine. Right? They already know. So it's fine. Right? And then another one for me is when I started doing more public speaking, I don't know if it was consciously or subconsciously, I stopped being so judgmental as well. I think that was a big thing also, like judging other people. Because I see my kids, I'm like, you might want to calm down because you're going to be on that stage at some point. So I think for me, that's helped me out to have, given me a lot more grace with people, right? Like I can still have a laugh, but I understand. And I try to give people their props for even having the courage to go up there. I understand how hard it is. I'm more appreciative of the things that people create. Just in general made me appreciate people more, I think, because it's so difficult every single time. Like this is crazy to me that this doesn't get easier. But that's a Jim Rohn thing. It's like things only get easier when you get better. And it's like, oh, that's just the truth, man. I think I'm going to accept that and walk forward with that. So I think I got better, but it's still not easy.
That's so funny. Yeah, it's a big one. One thing I also wanted to ask you about are the audiobooks, and you've mentioned the checklist a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that means to you and what that is and how it's...
Okay, we have a first-time home buyers checklist on there. It's just a spreadsheet, just giving you things to kind of focus on. With the home buyers, I think it's the year the home was built, just getting you to kind of have that somewhere you can see it. The price per square foot is another one, having that where you can see it. And then what's the plan? Is this a 5 to 10 years thing? Is it 5 years or less thing, or more than 20? Just kind of giving people an idea of what they want, once again, before they go in. And then we have the disability claims tracker for veterans specifically, which kind of shows them the 3 elements of service connection on the top, just kind of reminding them of the evidence they're trying to show so they can get the claim approved, and then kind of putting it in categories. The in-service event for this particular claim, they'll have it right there. What is the current diagnosis? Do you have that evidence? If so, put it right there. And then the nexus, like the link between the two. So just kind of a simplified way for them to kind of have everything they're going to need for that claim in one place, right? And then with every claim they file, they can see, okay, am I satisfying these 3 criteria for each individual claim? So it makes it a little easier for them to kind of know whether or not they're ready to submit the claim or they need to go back and get additional information.
Yeah, because that can be really overwhelming.
Yeah. A lot of things. And then we have the goal tracker as well on there, and that's just for tracking personal, professional, social, and then whatever other goals you want to have, 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year. Just a reminder, once again, we say the goals are kind of like GPS, right? Like we want you to make SMART goals with the great acronym that came out maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. Something specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, timely, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
But with the goal, we say it's like GPS, right? Like if you want to go to Universal Studios in Florida, you can't just put Florida in your GPS. It's not going to get you to Universal Studios, right? You have to have that specific address, which is why we try to encourage people to be specific with your goals, right? That way the route will come to you, right? Like, I don't know how it happened. Who knows how it happens? But when you write something down and you start thinking about it, putting it on your mind, opportunities will open up. Once again, I don't know how it happens, but we suggest just try it out, right? We believe it's related to, I guess the reticular activating system has something to do with it, which is kind of a scientific thing of whatever you focus on, kind of your mind will help you to achieve whatever that is that you're focusing on. So I guess some of that...
Like the red car thing, right? Like if you mention a red car, all of a sudden you'll start seeing a red car everywhere.
Yeah.
Like that's, I think,
like your mind is working for you, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. It's working specifically for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, your mind is going to find...
Might as well be good, right?
Like that's kind of how we suggest it. But we have the life goals track and the power statement as well, which is just you listing your qualities and abilities, 3 of those. And then just a reminder that I am the most important person in my life. My improvement helps everyone around me, right? And then the difficulties will continue to come. I will continue to overcome them, right? Just kind of acknowledging some of these realities of life. And then also, I am confident, I am intelligent, I am assertive, right? Just kind of, once again, giving ourselves that good energy before we go out into the world. But yeah, those are the trackers that we have up there currently. I may be missing some.
No, yeah, I love it. I guess I'm interested also to know, as an entrepreneur, how did that decision come to you? Because that's a big one, to take on your own business, to open your own business, all of that. It's like whole other skill set. How did that idea, vision come to you?
I mean, I was intrigued by the information I was learning. And in my job, like my actual job, I do a lot of writing and regulations and stuff like that. So it just got to the point to where I think I just had to do it. Like I couldn't not do it any longer. I just had to jump out there and do it because I thought I had some useful information to share. And this stuff just kept coming to me. I kept writing so much. I'm like, man, I have to do something with this stuff. So yeah, I think that's where it kind of started, knowing that I had something that was valuable, something that had helped me tremendously, like literally changed my life. Like this stuff changed my life. So if I could package it and give it to other people, like I had to do it because on this journey also, as you go to more success and stuff, you're going to lose people along the way, right? And I miss my people. I think that was part of it too. I miss my friends that I used to get to hang out with. So if I could package things in a way to help us all be successful, maybe we could all hang out again. I don't know. Maybe that was a part of it. Because it's being serious about life is a serious thing. And there are sacrifices that must be made. But yeah, it was just so helpful for me. So I felt like I had to do it. I had to provide something that could help other people. That was kind of the basis of it. And then from there, I learned about the business and all this. And yeah, I'm still taking a licking with that side of things. But I think all that comes down to, once again, providing a valuable product. So that's what we try to focus on, making sure we're getting the feedback for the product. What can we add? What can we take away? What do you like about this? Is this simple enough? Right? Asking the question, getting the feedback, and then making sure we keep putting the products out and then coming on to advertise the products. And then we'll learn about, along the way, you'll learn about how to market stuff, how to advertise stuff, how to promote things, different even strategies we first started out trying to provide services also. But we're looking at the time that could take. It's like, I don't know if that would even be feasible right now. So being willing to adjust, that's a big one also. Like even if what I'm doing now was not the plan when I started all this, it was way different. The plan was way different. So I've had to adjust along the way, bumping into connecting with some people that are going to be helpful and help you, some people that are not and may set you back a little bit, but continuing to learn. And I think the kind of basis of it was I want to do something that helps people, right? Like that was kind of the basis of it. It started with like, I wanted to do a website where teachers could come on and teach and do all this stuff. That did not work out. It was a couple of years ago when I started that, and that thing, oh my goodness. You learn a lot through these things and keep coming back. Perseverance is key. I cannot say that I'm a successful entrepreneur right now, but yeah, we're still on the path. We're still going to give it a few years. We've got stuff out there to some people, yes, indeed. But things can definitely get bigger and better, and I can get better at what I'm doing. We can get better at the products we're providing in different ways that we can provide them. So, it's a lot of learning, and my future is what I see. But yeah, I love doing it though, and the feedback that we've gotten, I know for sure these things are helping people, right? It's helped at least one person. So it's worth it. We're going to keep going, keep trying to improve and see where it takes us, I guess. It's fun though.
No, I love that. I love talking to people who are like in the thick of it and not just at the end, because I think there are a lot of conversations and there's a lot of a spotlight on people who have already gone to the pinnacle yeah. And it's great to hear their story, but I love hearing from people who are doing it because while you're in the thick of it is when you can really lose the momentum and the drive, because it is really hard, especially entrepreneurship. It's just hard. And it's just so great to hear from someone who's doing it with the vision of, I love what I'm doing. If it's helping one person, we're going to keep doing it. Yeah. And just so anyone who's thinking about starting their own business or going out and doing that venture, whatever it is, knowing that it is hard, but you're not the only one. Like it's hard for every entrepreneur. It's hard, but that's okay. It's supposed to be. And I just love it. I love talking to people who are in the thick of it because it's refreshing and it's like kind of like a reality check. It's not like, oh, you just wake up one day and boom.
I mean, that's all a part of it. And it's tough. It is. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There are multiple times a week where I could just give all this up and it would make sense, right? Like, why am I even doing this? Right? Like multiple times a week. So yeah, I think, and we got to share that part of the message also, that it is tough. Right. But, and then you got to be hopeful as well. Right. People would look at me and think, oh, it's easy. It's not. I don't know. I don't know where you're getting that from. I am smiling, yes, but that's just because I'm happy. But I'm not happy because I'm happy because it sucks, and I know that, right? Like I knew that going in that this is going to be tough. This is going to be. I look at it as a life's test to see how bad do you want this. You say you want it, show me, right? So I'm trying to show life that I really do want to do this thing. I want to create things that help thousands of people all across the world, not just the country, but the world. So yeah, this is not easy at all. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. It's not for the faint of heart, not for the weak stomach. You're going to be challenged. So that's why I think it's important for me to let people know that, like, hey, it's going to be tough. You're going to be challenged. You need to protect what you have going on. You need to protect your mind because, I mean, hey, there's opportunities to give up every day. And I wouldn't be shocked if a person in this position gave. It makes sense. I get it. But for me, I feel like I got to stick with it. I feel like I have to do it at this point. Like I can't not do it at this point. So
yeah,
we're here for the long haul. 10 more years at least, and we'll see. We'll look up in 10 years.
I was just going to ask, what's next? What's next for you? What are your next? Do you have any big, like, 1-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals? What's up?
Okay. So for this year, we want to get on podcasts, at least 100 podcasts. We have the next course coming out. So we're trying to set it up to where we start with a book, turn that into an audio book, turn that into a course. That's kind of going to be the format that we're using so far. And then connecting with workforce organizations on the state level to try to get some of these messages out there, working with them to see kind of what's the best vehicle, what's the best way for us to put the information. So we do curriculums as well. But those are the goals, though, connecting to at least 10 states over the next 3 years, right? Getting at least 10 states to kind of use these products. That's one of the goals. And then getting on at least 100 podcasts to get the experience of being on a podcast and also promoting the products and learning. Like I learned so much just talking to people. So I get that benefit as well. And then learning about the business and the marketing and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of learning, a lot more promoting, and then a lot more products and getting them connected to state workforce organizations. Those are kind of the goals right now.
Okay. I love it. They're very clear and very specific, which I really like.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, like you need it. Okay. So we like to end every episode with like a little bit of rapid fire. So
okay. Let's do it.
Yeah. Like it has nothing to do with anything we've talked about, or it might, you don't know. Okay. What is the best career advice you've ever been given?
Best career advice. Learn to speak publicly.
What is the worst career advice you've ever been given?
If you're making more money than your age on an annual basis, you're doing just fine. That's not true, guys.
Ooh, I've never heard that. Yeah, that's not good.
Somebody told me that. I can't believe it.
What is your current best daily practice and why?
Oh, thank you. First 2 words I say, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for another day. For a while now. No alarm clock, wake up. Thank you. That's probably my best practice to start it off. Not being confused that, man, I'm lucky to be here. That's kind of the beginning for me. Yeah, that's probably my best daily practice, saying thank you every morning when I wake up.
Oh, I love that. And last question, what is your current favorite pump-up song, like to work out to? Or if you're about to go do public speaking somewhere, do you have like a pump-up song of the moment?
I
feel like music. You have a good one.
I'm listening to music all the time. Okay, I would say right now, my theme song is probably a song called Disturbing You by Aerostar. And the chorus is like, why is my happiness disturbing you? That's my favorite song. Right? That's my favorite song.
That's a good line. Yeah. What is it? Say it again. I'm going to write it down.
Disturbing You by Aerostar, Ayra. And then star with the 2 R's. She's a young person, so.
She's a young person.
They can spell things how they want to spell them. But yeah, that's right now.
Cool. Carter, thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And anything and everything that Carter mentioned, his products, any links that you mentioned, and his social, we're going to include in the show notes so you can check that out. And if you have any questions for him, I'm sure he would love to answer them. So thank you so much, Carter, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page. Thank you so much and see you next week.